Okay, let's go ahead and get started here. I know I'm a couple minutes behind. I was waiting to the last minute to get set up, but at least this time I notified everyone like 5 hours beforehand of the live stream instead of 5 minutes before the live stream. Can everyone hear me okay? I know last time my audio was a little low. So if it's too high, too low, let me know in the comments. Thank you guys, everyone that's joined in. I know quite a few of you have already joined the Facebook group that I linked up above. I'm going to link it again right now, and it's also in the description of this video. We'll link it a few times during the video. So what this Facebook group is and what I want to accomplish is posting a scope lesson once a week. And then you guys go out and try that scope lesson on any vehicle. Doesn't matter, year, make, model, whatever it is, whatever you have available. And the ultimate goal is to grab our scopes and actually use them. A lot of us have, the 2 or 4 channel scope attached to our scanner. We don't use it. We have a Picoscope laying around. Even any other scope will work fine. I don't have all the scopes. I have Snap-on Pico, and my brother has an Autel, so I may use that if I can figure it out. But I just want to show you guys that you can use a scope for anything. So what the group is probably Sunday I'll post a video of a specific test. And I'm going to start with some basic, easy stuff. So if you've never used a scope before, don't feel overwhelmed. Don't feel like, oh, I can't accomplish this. And then you'll have all week to find a vehicle to try that test out on. Once you're in the Facebook group, just reply to that post with just a snapshot or a screenshot of your scope or scanner and post it up. Just show everyone that, yeah, I was able to get that scope capture. Or if you're having trouble getting that scope capture, then, post what you have and say, hey, it doesn't look right. What am I doing wrong? And either myself or someone else in the group, because we have a bunch of guys in there already that are excellent scope users. Some of them use scopes way more than me. So someone will help you out. It could just be a simple scale setting or, the wrong probe selected or time-based setting. And it could be your connection points. Yeah, allergies. Yeah, we've had lots of stuff in the air in Colorado. Let me move that so I can see. What else? So I'm not a avid user of Facebook groups. I've never had my own group, so I have to learn a few things about running it and managing it and making sure everything's organized. So, it may take me a few weeks to iron everything out. Also, Facebook has this new thing for educational groups where I can categorize stuff into assignments, I guess. And I mentioned to Daryl Coffrin in here that there was going to be homework involved. And we decided that we may need a different word than homework. So he said skill building. So it's not going to be homework. It's going to be a skill building exercise. And in case you've never used a scope before, what I want to do in this live stream is kind of go over the basic scope usage. And if I'm going to use my Snap-on, my Zeus, but the Modus, Triton, Verus is all going to be very similar. And if you have a Picoscope, more than likely you can just plug that thing in and turn it on, and you'll be able to get a scope capture with it. Pico, no homework for you. Okay, so let me jump over here to the Zeus, and I'll try to read the comments. Valerie's here with me, so she can yell at me if someone has a question and I'm ignoring it. I'm not doing it on purpose. It's just one of those things where I get distracted by what I'm doing, and I don't always read the comments. So this is the Zeus. Other platforms are going to have maybe a little less icons if you're using the Modus or the Triton. But all of the Snap-on ones are going to have the scope multimeter. So what we're going to do is, first time using a mouse with this, we're going to click on that button and we're going to go to labscope. All the basic tests that I'm going to start out with are going to be under the labscope section. As we get a little more advanced, then we can jump into some of the more the ignition stuff, the specific test for that job. But 90% of what I test on a weekly basis is just DC volts. I don't always use the 4-channel lab scope, but you can pick either volts DC or the 4-channel scope. And either one, you can make changes to the settings after you're in there. So we're going to go 4-channel scope. And if you hear clicking coming from your scan tool, that's perfectly normal. That's just it switching what channels are turned on, the attenuators and whatnot. If you end up on a screen like this, and I'm going to cover this again in the video that's uploaded. I might upload it tonight if I get it done, but it'll probably be tomorrow. If you see this and you're like, well, okay, well, I don't really see anything happening. I don't know where to make my setting changes. There is going to be a button. I'll have to move myself here because I am right in the way. But down here at the bottom of the screen on the Virus and the Zeus is a little square with 2 triangles next to it. That will cycle through the different scope views. And then also up here at the top is a button that says data. It has a little eyeball with a square around it. Click on that. You can kind of scroll through it as well. So we want to kind of blow up our settings screen so we can see what we're doing and what settings we're changing. And obviously the last time I used this, I was using channel 3 and 2 for some reason instead of number 1. No idea. I probably just turned number 1 off because I didn't need it anymore and I still had the other 2 set up. But you can see there's a little row of eyeballs right here. And if we click on those, it'll turn the channels on and off. You'll hear the scanner click here. And if you end up on a blank screen like this, make sure to click one of them. By default, if you've never used the scope before, it's going to get turned on with at least one channel turned on, sometimes channel 1 and 2. And those of you just joining in, thanks for joining in. And I see some new names in here, which is good. We are going to be posting up the Facebook group a couple times during this live stream. And we'll be covering more of what that Facebook group details a little bit further in this video. So from here, we have a selection screen for our labscope. It says channel 1. It shows a probe. And it kind of looks like the test lead that our digital multimeter would have, or our DVOM. So if you click on that, you can make changes to what probe you're actually using. Now, most of the easy tests or the common tests are going to be DC volts. I mean, I use that 90% of the time. Sometimes I switch over to one of the other ones, but most of the time it's DC volts. So we'll just make sure that's still selected. We'll hit back. Peak detect is going to... And Daryl and some of the other Snap-on guys probably know the correct terminology, but I think it boosts the refresh rate a little bit, or the sampling rate, and it gives us all the little details. And you can see right here just the change in the screen of the pattern, that it's picking up a lot more noise. Now, I'm in my house with electrical wiring all over the place and wires for this live stream all over the place. I have lights set up, so it's going to be picking up quite a bit of noise. If we turn peak detect off, it'll kind of smooth out that image a little bit, but it's not necessarily going to take out all the noise unless we hit filter. Filter's going to really smooth it out, and I know it's hard to see with that grid in the background, but that's a setting as well. Noisy house. Do I have the audio turned up too loud? Valerie, does it sound all right, or am I too loud?
Sound good.
Okay.
But I have headphones on and
so there might be a little bit of background noise as well. We're right next to my computer with some fans going. So I'll turn filter off for now as well. Inverted, what that's going to do is that's going to flip our signal from the negative to positive scale and vice versa. So if we were using an amp clamp, which has to be around the wire a certain way to display correctly, and we have it hooked up backwards, but it won't fit any other way, then you can hit that inverted button and flip the image. If you have your leads for the scope hooked up, if you hooked up positive and negative backwards on the battery, it's not a big deal. You can hit the inverted button. But all changes do have to be made before the recording. Snap-on doesn't allow a whole lot of manipulation of the waveform after the capture. So coupling AC is going to take away any resonant, the bias voltage, I would say, that's on the scope. So if we hooked up to a battery that's 12 volts and we have like a very stable 12 volts, it's going to take that 12 volts away and it's going to drop our signal down to the 0 line. Now, this is useful because if you're looking at a signal that's very small, but it's riding up here on top of the signal, if we hit AC, which you guys can't really see my hands that good in the corner there, but if we hit AC couple, it's going to take away that 12 volts, and then we can zoom in on that little signal and make it really big. Where am I at here? So that is useful for quite a few tests, especially if you're on the volts DC probe. I say volts DC, but we're on test, lead, volt DC, and then we AC couple it for certain tests. And then our scale, that is how much voltage we actually want to read. Like right now, I'm only reading 200 millivolts. I think the last time I used this, I was using an amp clamp, and I didn't want to go over 200 amps, and it wasn't the Snap-on amp clamp, it was another one. And I just picked 200. That was the top of my scale that I needed. And then our slope here, that is for triggering. If we have a rapidly changing signal, and I wish I grabbed a signal board to hook this up. If we wanted to line that signal up, say it's bouncing all over the place. If we want to line it up in one spot on the screen, we turn on triggering. And the slope is which side of that waveform are we going to sync up to? Are we going to lock into that image as the slope of the waveform is going up or going down? And then once we turn that on, you can see over here there's a little crosshair. We can kind of drag that around to where we want to move our image around and maybe filter off of a different signal or trigger off of a different signal. So that's the basics of just our settings for individual channels. Now there are a few more channel settings, and say we wanted to sync up to an ignition source. We have the additional accessory from Snap-on that plugs into that. It looks like a VGA cable on the top, like the old video monitors have. I think it's called a DB9. If we plug the RPM pickup on that and we wanted to sync off of that instead, down here next to the, it says 20 seconds, that's our sweep. Next to that is a little dash. If we click on that, a screen pops up with more information on our triggering. So if we don't want to trigger on channel 1, 2, 3, or 4, and we want to trigger on that RPM pickup instead, we'll click on cylinder. And then, there's a few adjustments we can make there as well. Now, that's really only used if you're doing ignition testing. So I'll hit back. And then the sweep is how much time do we have on the screen. Now, different scanners do this a different way. Picoscope does it by division. So if we clicked like 1 second per division, there's going to be 10 divisions on the screen. So we're going to have 10 seconds on the screen. Snap-on does it by the total time on the screen, which is 20 seconds right here. If we click on it, that's the maximum, and we can go down to a much shorter time base. Now, the difference between the Snap-on and all the other scopes that I know of is you can't zoom in after you take the picture with Snap-on or after you take a capture. What we have to do is we have to take a very, very close small picture, and the Snap-on is going to stack all those pictures side by side. And once we have all those images, then we can zoom out and see the big picture. All the other brands, you take a really big picture and then you zoom into the fine details. So just keep that in mind depending on which scope you're using. Let's see, what else? Grabbing the wrong. I got two mouses here, or mices, or mices, because I got the computer and the labscope. Okay, so most testing I would say is going to be done between, like over here, this is like really, really high accuracy. I typically don't go any lower than 20 unless I'm doing some network testing, because I can always zoom out with the Snap-on. But 200 milliseconds is a common starting point for me, unless I'm like making sure I have a good signal and I want to see the whole picture right up front. Then I just jump up to the maximum. Once I know I have my signals in place, then I'll zoom in for the recording process. Like I said, you can have multiple channels turned on, but in my videos, as we go through the next couple of weeks, I'm going to start out with one channel, and then we'll add a second channel, and then we'll add some accessories. So I'm going to start lower levels once again and build it up. And what I may do is, there's a few guys in this group that are really top-notch guys. They have YouTube channels, they do scope stuff, and some of those guys have actually specialized in certain areas, and they're known to the community as being the guy to go to for that information. As this group grows, there may be a video that I'm not the expert in, and so I may reach out to one of them and say, hey, do you want to make this video? Most of the videos, are going to be, I would say, 10 to 15 minutes long, depending on the lesson and how much hookup there is and explanation of the accessory. So what I do want to do is I don't really want to use this video series as a diagnostic tool to analyze 100% the signals that we're getting. So most of the vehicles I'm going to be using are going to be known good waveforms, and that way we can, it's always best to test known good first. That way you get an idea of what a signal should look like. That way when you get the vehicle that's acting up, you can figure out why it doesn't look like what it should look like. So I recommend checking this on known good waveforms, or known good vehicles. If we're doing a cam sensor, crank sensor, just any vehicle that week that pulls in the bay where you have an extra 10 minutes of time, grab the scope, grab some test leads, get hooked up to that car. Preferably one that's easy to get to the cam sensors or crank sensors, and grab that capture. Let me see what other settings we need to address in the Snap-on one. And I'm not sure if I have Pico software on this computer, but we may do a quick intro on that as well if you're using the Pico. Okay, I think that's it for the basic stuff. But if you're trying to make your screen look like mine, I'm going to get rid of this. And, you know, yours doesn't have the grid pattern, or you might look a little different. There's information in the setup. We can go to setup and go to view, display, and I have the grid turned on. If you have the RPM probe hooked up, even if you're not using it, you can get the scan tool to display, or the scope to display the engine RPM. You can invert the colors. It's kind of hard to see, especially channel 1, but what I do know is if you are planning on printing out any screenshots, I would recommend inverting the colors so your printer doesn't die a quick death from printing a full sheet of black. So I normally run with the grid on and RPM off unless I'm doing ignition testing, and digital KV is disabled because we're not in the ignition section. And the ignition section of the labscope actually has some different time bases as well. Okay, additional channels, if we need them when we get to that point, you can activate them here. You can mix and match what scope accessories you're using. They don't all have to be the test volts DC or test lead volts DC. If we had an amp clamp, we can select that here. But if you're not using the Snap-on amp clamp, then more than likely you're going to use volts DC anyways, and just convert the number into amps based off of the settings that you're using on your probe. And let me just see real quick if I have Pico software on. I do have it on my Zeus, so if I can't find it on my computer, then we'll use it from the Zeus. Thought I had it on here. Nope, I don't have it on here. I set my Zeus in for the Windows 10 upgrade, and I haven't reinstalled it. Okay. Give me 1 second, and we will do a run through on the Picoscope, and we can look at some demo waveforms on the Picoscope as well. And I'll have Valerie read me any questions if there's any in the comments after she's done typing.
I don't think there's any questions to you.
Okay.
Let me see. There was a comment from Angel, and he says, and get into the practice of texting after to confirm repair.
Oh, that is a great point. A lot of us, you know, I'm not flat rate, but I'm guilty of doing it anyways. We're in a hurry. We don't always perform the testing or the confirmation test afterwards. So that's kind of something we should watch. Because how do we know we 100% fixed that waveform? Where's the button? Okay, so with the Picoscope, this is just using the the demonstration device since I don't have a Picoscope connected. So it's giving us a couple of waveforms here. It looks like probably an injector, but Picoscope, we can see the sweep down at the bottom. And if you get confused on what sweep is and what scale is, think of sweep, that's our floor. When you grab a broom, you sweep the floor. So that is going to be our horizontal plane. The scale is how big something is, and that's going to be our numbers on the left of the screen here that show, I guess Picoscope has them on the left and the right, unless you change that in the settings. They alternate channel A, B, C, and D on the left and the right of the screen. And Picoscope has a little more flexibility of, moving stuff around. You can move stuff around in the Snap-on, but you can change the scaling and stuff in the Picoscope. So this is Picoscope 7 beta software. 6 is a little different. I find 6 easier to use myself, but that's because I've been using it since 2013. Picoscope 7 I've only been using for a couple of months. So over here on the side it says A, B, C, and D. If I click on that, somewhere in that area for that channel, it gives me a bunch of options. The channel probe that we're using says X1 no scaling. So what that's going to do is it's going to show us our volts DC with no alteration to the signal. Whatever that scope is picking up on the 2 test leads, that's what we're going to get. If we plug in an amp clamp, then we're going to switch over to a 30 amp or a 2060. I have the 2060 clamps. That's their older model, I believe. So if you pick that, then you have the choice of 20 or 60. If you're using Picoscope 6, in that drop down, it'll say 60 amp clamp, 20 amp, or 60 amp. It kind of breaks it down into separate listings. And then if we're doing ignition, we have a secondary and coil on plug. A lot of ignition probes you may have from older devices that aren't necessarily the name brand. So you may just have to play around with those and use the volt DC scale or try one of these. But the actual numbers may be a little bit different. I have no idea if that was the dog or the cat, but I'm going to guess the cat because the dog is going to be sleeping.
I have trouble trying to get a good capture doing exhaust pulse test using the Snap-on, meaning to crank the car and get back in time to hit the pause. Any tips being alone in the shop? Jason C.
That's something I struggle with as well. Since we don't have a lot of options on the triggering with the Snap-on, the Picoscope, we can make it to where it only records when there's a pulse, and it quits recording when there's no pulse. Or whenever that waveform doesn't go past that trigger, it doesn't record. Snap-on will actually wipe stuff off the buffer, even if there's nothing going past the trigger. I try to keep the scanner in my hand if I can, so I can hit the stop button. Now, I know my Zeus has a detachable... Let me see if I don't mess up the live stream here. I have the detachable scope module, so I just slid this off the back of the scope. So there's a USB port on the bottom. You can plug that into the device and extend your reach by up to 20 feet. I think that's the maximum recommended on the USB cable. Typically from the Snap-on dealer, they come with a USB cable that's like 15 feet long. Sorry, let me grab a drink here. So that is one way one way that you can get around that. And some of that testing, I have pulse sensors. I use them maybe once a month. I don't use them every day. Some of the other guys use them all the time. So one of those guys may have another tip for you. But if I have to be, cranking the car and I don't know if I'm going to get back in time to hit the stop button, then I'll just run the extension lead on the scope module if I can't drag it over the driver door and into the cockpit with me to hit that stop button. If someone else is in the shop, my brother works in the bay next to me, a lot of times I'll say, hey, come hit the stop button when I tell you, and he'll do that for me. So Picoscope has some powerful after capture waveform manipulation. So we're capturing a waveform right here, and it looks like kind of a mess. That's probably because I messed up the scaling here. But if we don't really know what's on the screen here, and we're zoomed way out, we want to look at the fine details, I'm just going to hit spacebar, which will stop the recording. alternatively, you can come up here and just hit stop. And then I normally use this on my laptop, which is a touchscreen, and I just, pinch and expand the screen to zoom in. So I have to find the zoom button. There it is, hiding in the corner. Everything's changed with Pico 7. And I can zoom in here and zoom in there. Obviously, I have an issue with my setup still on the demo device because I screwed that all up. I'm guessing I was supposed to have a attenuator hooked up. I don't know what I did, but you can zoom in a lot on these images after the waveform has been taken. So the Pico, I think, does have a little bit of extra power when it comes to sharing that waveform afterwards, especially in the groups and having other people analyze what you have. They can open this up in their software and zoom in and do their own base measurements and look at the waveform. Yeah, Valerie said she was going to thumbs down it before we even started. Oh, okay, that's why it didn't.
I just didn't want you to get cocky, okay?
Was that thumbs down you?
No, it wasn't.
Okay. That's my my loyal subscriber. The other day we got worried. I was like 8 hours after a video upload with no thumbs down yet, and I was starting to get concerned with the person. Like, are they okay? Are they still subscribed? Did I lose that subscriber? Because I always have the one, within like 15 minutes of uploading that hits the thumbs down button. Okay, let's see. What else do we need to cover? I think that's kind of the basics. As we get a little more involved, we will definitely, show some advanced features with the Picoscope and the Snap-on. I don't know if I can do any advanced features with the Autel, the Maxiscope, because I don't use that tool. My brother uses it minimally. I find it difficult to use. I have a hard time getting a clean waveform. There's always a lot of noise, but maybe he just has a bad cable.
Did you already read Mario's comment or no?
No.
Sorry, I stopped listening to you for a second.
So Mario, I'm on the fence with 7. Sometimes I have to jump back to 6 just to find a feature. I'm sure that it's in there, but not always. I think the last one I had to jump back was I needed a custom probe. I see that there's a math channel here, but I think it was a custom probe that I was trying to make because I was using the Snap-on pressure transducer with the Picoscope so that I could use a math channel to calculate the engine oil pressure versus the vacuum in the crankcase on the Audi oil pump issue video. So I did have to jump back to 6 to do the custom probe. And I think if I had the custom probe in there before, then maybe it would have transferred over into 7, but I'm not 100% sure. I think 7 is designed more for surface-based laptops. So a lot of features are designed for using your hands on the screen instead of a mouse. That's why the buttons are a lot bigger. There's a lot more features with pinching for the zoom, which you can do that in 6 as well. But it does work very well on a touchscreen laptop, and I keep wanting to just reach out and grab my monitor right now, and that's not going to work. So what else do you guys want me to cover in this video? I think that about sums it up. I'm going to post a link to that group again. So those of you that joined in halfway through this, you don't know what the Facebook group's 100% about. Wait for the parade of motorcycles to go by. I got the windows open, and we live right next to the highway. So the Facebook group is going to be a weekly waveform. It's automotive weekly waveforms. Every week, every Sunday, I'm going to post up a post on that group. Normally, it's going to include a video, and it's going to be a certain scope capture, and then the video will include how to get that scope capture. And I'm going to alternate through the tools that I have available. And we're going to start out easy with just voltage testing. We're going to add some accessories in there, and then we'll get to some advanced stuff. Participation is appreciated. So almost like homework, but it is a skill building exercise, me and Daryl decided, or Daryl suggested. And that's about it. And that group can be expanded, to include other stuff as well if you guys, want it to be that way. Um, I'm very open with this. I just wanted to get it off the ground and started. I've been thinking about it for a couple weeks. And in the Train by Text live stream last Thursday, Keith DeFazio mentioned that a lot of guys go to class and they don't go right back to the shop and apply those skills that they just learned about. So they have the theory, and then if they don't put that theory into action in the next couple of weeks, that theory is gone. We have to deal with so much information that I think that it's kind of difficult to remember that stuff unless you go and apply it. So if you can use this every week, and I show you just a quick test to run during the whole week, a vehicle, any make, year, model, whatever it is, comes in the bay, and you have an extra couple minutes, hook up to that vehicle, grab that scope capture, and take a picture of it, post it up to the group, and that way we can see, because some people have different techniques as well. Some people run different scaling. You guys might have a tool that you like to use, or a certain accessory you like to use, and it produces a cleaner waveform or a better capture. Or if you're using Pico software, you like to use a math channel to accomplish something. Let us know what you did to get a certain waveform, and that way we can all learn. It'll be a group learning exercise. Yes, definitely Mario. Scope stuff, you're testing the actual part on the engine. We're not worried about data translation between a scan tool to determine what information we're seeing. We're seeing the raw data from that vehicle sensor, and then if we were using a scanner as well, we might have to translate that a little bit to what the scanner is showing us, because they normally show us information that is filtered or buffered a little bit, so it's not as accurate. Or they may be giving us false data completely if the sensor has a fault, and we don't know. We're like, okay, well, that sensor is showing normal voltage and a normal range and a normal temperature, and unless we go to that sensor with a scope and test it, we don't know 100%. Yeah, hopefully 30% is retained. There's every class that I go to, even if I've taken that class before, I still go to that class when we were actually doing in-person classes, and I still attend the webinars as well, because even though it's the exact same class I took 2 years ago, I'm going to pick up one thing new that I forgot about from the last class, and hopefully I can apply that going forward. Okay, so if you guys have any questions, put those down below. I'd be happy to answer those. If not, I think this is probably one of our shortest live streams. I can go over other stuff, Picoscope, Snap-on, if you guys want. Virtual Apex, I have not. When is that? Free classes. So let's cover that real quick as well. I know that a lot of us got really burnt out in the first couple of months of COVID when the free training was available. And we may have stopped going to training, but with fall and winter coming and it's dark outside and we can't do our yard work, it might be a good time to maybe reinvest our spare time into some additional training. I know that, sorry, there's a piece of dust floating in front of my face. If there is free classes and even some of the paid classes, I think are still getting posted up on the Train by Text website. If you're a CarQuest CTI member, they have a list of their classes on their website. If you are a Napa Auto Care Center, or if you attend the Napa Auto Care classes, their site is a little difficult, but you can get in there and you can find their live webinars. I don't think a lot of people know about the Napa ones, because the one I attended last week, I was the only one in there. So it wasn't very interactive. I felt kind of bad that more people didn't see it, but I almost didn't see it, and I wouldn't have seen it if I didn't log into the Napa website to sign up one of my employees for some e-learning. And if you want to watch recorded sessions or even some skill building exercises or ASE test prep, Napa has all of those as well on their website. Exactly. Ben said that he needs to get his button gear. He got burnt out from the training because there's so much of it, and I feel the same way. Like there was like 4 or 5 classes a night, and you were shuffling between them, trying to figure out which one you wanted to watch. And I think we all got burnt out a little bit, but now, and middle of summer didn't help, but hopefully going into the fall, we have a little more time. Hey, Brian, you're showing up right here at the end. Let me see if I can pull up the Napa one real quick. For those of you that haven't used the Napa site, it takes a little bit of work to get logged into. You may actually have to call them on the phone if you have one of the Napa class passes. And my screen may look a little different than yours when you log in, because I'm listed as a supervisor for some of my employees. So if you get logged into the Napa website, the Napa, it says mt.napaautocare.training.com. They've changed the website name a few times over the years, but what's nice is whether or not I go to online training or in-person training, it tracks my training for me. So I can click on my training here. It'll show me what classes I've attended. Website's a little slow. So my classes that are still current are the ones that I've taken most recently, which is just this month, and those were some shop management classes. It is nice that they have some shop management training. And then if I go to, let me go to all here, it'll show me all the classes that I've taken where I swiped my class pass card plus my e-learning classes. So it keeps a nice record for you. And then let me go back to the main screen here. If you want to look for a specific class, also they have Spanish classes on here. Up at the top it says search the course catalog, and then you can either type in a specific thing or you can just browse through them. Like right here it says something in Spanish, 5 verifications, something about diagnostics. I don't speak Spanish, I don't read it, but they do have Spanish classes available. Not their full library, they're still building some of them, but there's quite a bit. And then over here on the side we have topics, ASE test prep. You guys making fun of me?
You couldn't read that Spanish?
Nope, sure can't. The 5 verification basics of diagnostics. Okay. I wasn't going to try too hard. ASE test prep. Before I took my L1 certification, I went through here and I took the test prep and went through, and they have quizzes and stuff. Took all that. They give you some information. I felt confident in going to take my L1. I think I missed 2 questions on the L1 test. I think that I probably would have missed more if I didn't kind of study up and brush up on some of the topics I don't work on every day. I live in a non-emission area. I don't deal with 5 gas at all. Luckily, PJ from Voltage Drop Diagnostic gave me some pointers on some of the questions that they ask in that test based off of 5 gas analysis. And then even if you are a shop supervisor, shop foreman, shop manager, you may have to call and get added as a supervisor, but you can assign some work to your technicians or assign a training curriculum. It's a pain. I assigned something to my brother, I think, and it took me 15 minutes to assign. So it's a little clunky, or you can just give them, hey, I want you to complete these, and then you can see what their progress is on them.
What was the website for the Napa training?
Let me share it in the group. It's mt.napaautocare.training.com. But you can also search for classes. So I'm going to share this page instead. So the page that I shared is where we would normally look for our local training, in-person training, which I really hope they start soon. But who knows? You just punch in your zip code and radius. If you don't live near the town that the training is held, like I live like 45 miles away from the training, sometimes it always doesn't show up, but I think you have up to 200-mile range. So sometimes I punch in the zip code for Colorado Springs, because that's where I go for training. And then up at the top, there's the sign-in button. And that would take you to the normal sign-in page. If you don't have a username and password, or if you logged into the old system a long time ago, then you're probably going to need to call them and have them tell you what your username is, because they screwed it all up. It used to be your email address, and they changed it to where instead of an at symbol, it's an underscore, and there's a bunch of mumbo jumbo in front of it. Like my username, I'll never remember it. Luckily, I just have it saved on Google, and it's written down somewhere. Um, so there's a lot in the Napa Training Center. CarQuest, I don't have my login for CarQuest. I have to call in and get that information, so I don't know what that screen looks like. I normally just go to the CarQuest website and enter my zip code and look for local classes. But with all the free e-learning, I didn't have to do that. I could just click on any class I wanted. Um, so if, like, my sister is joining us at the shop, it's a family-run business. She hasn't worked for the shop since she was 16 years old, which is like 17, 18 years ago. So she's coming back in. One of my service writers is retiring, so she is going to come in and work the counter. We're going to have to train her up again, but I got her signed into this so she could start taking some brush up material. They have service writing classes that teach them about certain parts of the cars. They have an alignment class for service writers, and I think that's really important because the service writer doesn't always go to the technician training. It's really hard to convince them to go to technician training. If you guys have a service writer that goes to the same training you do, that is awesome. I wish it was that way everywhere, but at least they have some opportunities for a new service writer to learn the jargon and the details about what they're selling. Let me go back here. Do we use DVI? We pay for DVI every month, but we don't use it. And that's another thing that we are making some changes in our shop procedures, our service writing software. We're doing all of that around the end of the year. My sister starts in November. We're using Napa Tracks. We're a Napa Auto Care Center. We're using Napa Tracks. It's not the most powerful software out there. There are a lot of features in there, but it is not a modern software by any means. I feel it's very similar to the Mitchell Shop Manager or Snap-on Shop Key. They're both still based off of the software that was built in the 90s, based off a SQL Server, and they're not web-based, they're not cloud-based, which isn't something everybody wants. We had a cloud-based one for a while, and our internet was terrible, so we got rid of it. Our internet is good now, and we have a redundant internet and a router that switches from one to the other and load balances if we have a dropout. So we can now have a cloud-based server, but there's probably once or twice a year where a main fiber optic line gets cut in Colorado somewhere, and we lose internet for several hours. So I don't know if all of the cloud-based services offer a local server as well. We've been looking at Shopware, RO Writer, and the Techmetrics as well. And some of those have built-in DVI software. Where right now we have Napa Tracks, and we don't like the way the invoices print out. So we have to pay additional every month. I think it's like $100 for bolt-on technology, so we can print out a nicer looking report. For DVI software, we use AutoVitals. It populates based off of the vehicles that we enter in on Napa Tracks, so it's fully integrated. But it doesn't talk back to Napa Tracks. It doesn't write to the database. The service writer has to manually enter that information in. There's pros and cons to that. You don't always want the technician writing their story because they may say this car's a POS and it's not worth fixing, and you don't want that information getting automatically written to the vehicle. Hopefully your technicians aren't doing that, but you never know. But a lot of the new cloud-based services offer an all-in-one package where you can do DVI, you can do reports, nice reports. What I normally have to do, if I want to do a specific report, I have to run the report in Napa Tracks and then export it as an Excel file. And then I have to go into Excel and I have to modify the whole thing for it to show me the information I want to see. It doesn't do charts and graphs real well. So you use Landcar for the DVI software or for the service writing software. And I know that some guys actually have the service writing software at every technician's workstation. Um, Michael over at the Flat Rate Master, his shop I believe uses RO Writer. He's done a couple videos on it. Every technician has access or a station with the service writing software. They make all of their own notes. In that software, they do their own estimates, and then the service writer just has to review it and then sell it. Um, we've been on the fence if we want all of our technicians to be modifying the invoice. Just for accuracy's sake, sometimes it's better just to have the service writers do it. Yeah, I think ours has that as well. There's the shop eyes only comments and notes, and then there's the customer comments and notes. They've added a lot of features, but we never went full board and fully integrated with the DVI. But it is something we want to change. Um, there's a lot of different aspects of shops out there. We are very busy right now, but our production is a little lower than it should be. But our shop is booked out about 3 weeks, and most of the other shops in town are booking, 3 or 4 days right now. So we have a full parking lot every day. Most of our guys are kind of burnt out and stressed out because summer has not ended for us. Normally we get, the 4 months of summer, and then everything kind of smooths out and slows down a little bit, and we still are productive, but it's at a less rapid pace. And we have not turned summer off yet. I'm hoping that that comes soon. Definitely inspection sheet layout takes a lot of time to build those in the DVI software when we use the auto vitals. I've gone in numerous times and modified them, and then I'll use it for a week or so and then go in and modify it again. Actually, there was just a webinar with Carm Capriato and a bunch of other guys, and they were talking about their shops. I think Bavarian Motorsports was in there, and I think that's who was talking. I had it playing in the background, but he mentioned that they do a daily meeting every morning, and they discuss the inspection, and they do an inspection on every single vehicle. And if there's a problem with the inspection, they discuss it, and they write a list of stuff they need to talk about, and they may only cover one topic that day, and they spread it out throughout the week until they get that inspection ironed out, and they track everything down to the minute. They know exactly how long an oil change should take. I think he mentioned that they tracked every step along the way for an oil change customer from the time that they make the appointment until the time the customer picks up that vehicle, and they had 40 steps, and they were able to calculate every single step and how long that step should take in order to better time manage the employees. Who? Was there a question or comment for me?
No, they're going back and forth with each other.
Oh, are they arguing? Don't make me ban somebody or put you in timeout.
I know, don't make me take away your wrench.
So yeah, we're gonna have some big changes. I know we haven't done a live diagnostic live stream in a while. I'm hoping with fall and winter coming up, that is going to be something that we can accomplish. Summertime's difficult for us. Wintertime's a little bit easier because what else are we going to do in the evenings other than watch Law and Order or Stranger Things or The Mandalorian? It comes out at the end of the month. More homework. I need to give you guys more homework. So we are going to. Me and Valerie have been in the process of looking at building a new house, primarily a new garage. We've been on the fence of, do we just want a new garage right now or a new house and a garage? Our house is ancient and it's not worth putting a lot of money into. So I've got 5 acres. We're going to build a garage that we can do the live streams in. I can leave my live stream the setup up and running all the time. Not broadcasting, obviously, but ready to go. So whenever I get a diagnostic vehicle, I can, whether it's my vehicle or customer vehicle, I can bring it into the live stream studio and just go live. And it'll be something that we can do more often than we are now because we don't have that setup time. That setup time just kills us. Yeah, it's my inspection sheet. Let me actually see if I can pull it up on here. I've modified it a few times, but it's been a while since I've done it. Give me 1 second.
The scope even hooks up to.
Okay, let me add the browser back in. Um,
LaRue Stokes gave himself a wrench. It's just a silver emoji wrench, but.
let me, now I gotta see. Okay. So those of you that are unfamiliar with Auto Vitals, this is just the technician page. Unfortunately, we haven't been using it for like the last year, so this is just a mess. Like these are all the vehicles that we still need to inspect. A very long list, which means that those vehicles are probably still at the shop or they have open work orders or parts waiting to be installed. But let me go to our inspections. Hopefully this changes on the screen. It wants me to log in again. You guys didn't see that information. I'll wiggle it around so you can't focus in on it. Oh, it's not up on the screen anyway, so you don't have to worry about it. Luckily, I didn't share the browser yet. It's being difficult. Valerie's laughing at me. Or laughing at you guys, one of the two. You decide. Is she making fun of you or is she making fun of me? Hmm.
I was laughing at you shaking your information that wasn't on the screen.
Yeah, I was just moving the window around, shrinking it and expanding it so you guys couldn't read my information. Um, so these are all the current vehicles still on the screen. Um, Actually, quite a few of these are my personal vehicles, so I probably need to pay those bills and close out those invoices. But let me go to the inspection sheets, hopefully. It just doesn't want to load. They may be having some issues. That's the other problem with cloud-based services. Let me...
Angel says it looks like Minesweep.
So yeah, well, I'll send you what our inspection sheet looks like. Now, what kind of inspection are you looking for? Because I have move this over here so I can see you guys still. I have some inspections for just like a courtesy inspection with the oil change, and then I have a used vehicle inspection that's a little more detailed, and we never really ironed them out completely just because my dad didn't always like how long they took, and the time involved to get fluent with the inspection sheet to where you can just do a lap around the vehicle while looking at everything and then just mark it down real quick and have everything in there as a canned note or comment. But they get kind of difficult. Now I want to play Minesweeper, and that's all I can think of. Okay, Chris Daniel, thanks for joining us. Oh, at least it's not my audio. I was worried for a second. Right before we went live, I kicked a cable and unplugged the audio interface, so I was getting kind of worried. We will have, hopefully that video, it's not going to be tonight now because I've spent too long and I still have to edit it. But tomorrow I'm going to post up in that Facebook group, I'll post a link to the video so you guys can see what the objective is for the first week of training. And let me copy this again. And then each Sunday, I'll post up a new test to perform. If you guys have suggestions or want to see how a certain test is done, then I will add it to the queue of test. And when it kind of fits in our current scheme of things, then I'll add that in. I thought about doing a couple of easy ones and then maybe a medium or hard one, but I don't want to overwhelm some of the guys that are just getting into scope usage. Looking forward to homework. Brandon Dale's getting here right at the end. So, yeah, just look for the notification, join the group, answer the questions. If you answer the questions, you get in faster. Otherwise, I have to go in and review everything. I would say that 50% of you guys didn't answer all the questions. It's only like 3 questions, and one of them is multiple choice. So if you can't answer the questions, then you may not do the homework. So Brian Good, that's probably the guy I need to talk to for tech metrics. Do you guys have a standalone server at the shop as well in case your internet goes down? LaRue, I appreciate you joining in, and I really hope this group turns out good on Facebook, and I figure out the technical aspect of the Facebook group as well, make everything nice and smooth. Yeah, thanks everyone for joining in. I'll stick in here for another few minutes, and we can chit chat. And Clay is still at a loss at what a labscope is and what it hooks up to. So a labscope is a device that we can look at voltage readings as an image over time. So it draws out what voltage is doing on our car or sensor on the screen over time. They come in all shapes and sizes and formats. One of the common ones is built into a scanner like this. These units are rather expensive. There's less expensive ones out there. They come in all different flavors. The automotive ones have certain circuit protection built in. Choking on my words. And they make them for computer repair as well, but they normally don't handle the voltages that we see in automotive stuff. Yeah, tech support. ATS scope for the win. I've never used an ATS scope. My tool budget has been limited for a while I decide what I'm doing for a house. But it's going to have a big garage with a little bit of living space in the corner. And keep in mind, in the group, I don't care what scope you're using. If you have a big selection of scopes, try it with each scope on the basic test. You might use your little U scope. For the advanced test, you break out the ATS, and that way everyone gets to see a little different flavor of what the scope varieties are and some of the features that they have. Anything else? Nope. Okay, I think we're going to wrap it up here. I appreciate you guys for coming in. Any scope? Not the scope mouthwash. Tastes bad.
You said any scope.
Any scope. E-scope? Any scope?
Now, are people doing their homework and sharing it via video or just text?
Well, however, after you get the capture, I would you got your cell phone there, snap an image of your scan tool or your laptop screen, and post that up. If you're on your computer where you can take a screenshot, you can do that. It's a little more clear. But the homework assignment or the skill building assignment and the proof of that is to take a screen capture of what you obtained, the capture that you got on the scope, and post it up to the Facebook group as a reply to that week's test. And then you'll not dust off the Zeus. Yeah, don't worry about dusting it off. Just take a screenshot. I actually cracked the screen on mine, and I just got a new screen protector I got to install. Luckily, it didn't damage the actual screen. Appropriate snapshots. If we can see the reflection of you standing over it without any clothes on, then there's an issue. Oh, that's a good point. A lot of the Snap-on scanners, if you took captures beforehand, or if you like to, have them oriented in a different way, then you can use the ShopStream Connect software to save those to your computer and upload the images as well. But as long as
Snap on or any scope, Jed?
any scope. So whether you have a Snap-on or any other brand Picoscope, then you can use whatever you have available to you. If you have a wide variety, go ahead and use them all. Um,
We'll make sure to feature Jarhead snapshots.
Yeah, that's going to be on the other Facebook group. The Napa link didn't seem to work.
Yeah, look for Jarhead snapshots on OnlyFans.
If you wanted to post some, you could post some now. Once I put the comment in there for the skill building, then that specific test, we'll post those as a reply to that specific comment. And I'll have to figure out a way. I think I can pin the weekly post up to the top, so it's easier to find, and then everyone else can see the waveforms underneath. But even if you have a waveform that you have a question about and it's not related to this week's post, feel free to post that in there. And we have some top-notch guys in here, or I myself will look at it and we'll see what's going on. Pico de Gallo. Yeah, we can kind of analyze that. Probably need to sign in to get full access. Yeah, and I don't really know. You might just try punching in Napa Class Pass. That may. I know it was difficult. That's why I saved that URL on my hotbar, because I always had.
Are you gonna stream on YouTube or Facebook for that Facebook group?
That's not it. I am probably going to have a pre-recorded video. I will record, hopefully, the lesson that we're going to be doing, and I'll edit it and I'll post that video in Facebook. But whether you see it in YouTube or Facebook, whichever one you get the notification for first, I'll cross-post it in both so that you guys will be notified of what we're doing that week, and then you can, have all week to get that scope capture. And you might try that link. That's the Napa training homepage. I just know that other page, I bookmarked it because it was always very difficult for me to find. So I appreciate everybody for coming out and commenting, the interaction. We already have a bunch of group members. I need to approve a bunch more that have signed up. And I hope to see you tomorrow when that video for the skill building exercise gets released. And I'll see you then. Okay, that one worked. Good to go. Okay, thanks for joining. See you next time.